I never imagined that the sound of a simple knock on my front door could split my life into a before and an after, but that's exactly what happened last Thanksgiving. Even now when I close my eyes, I can still feel the cold November air rush into the house as the door opened and I saw my father standing there, holding a wrinkled envelope with my name written in his handwriting, a handwriting I had spent years trying to forget. For a moment, I genuinely thought my heart stopped. Not because I was angry, although I had every reason to be, but because it felt like seeing a ghost from a life I had already buried. It had been 8 months since my wedding. 8 months since the day he refused to walk me down the aisle. 8 months since he told me that by marrying Daniel, I was throwing away everything our family stood for. 8 months since he made good on his threat and didn't show up. I told everyone I was fine. I smiled in all the photos, held onto Daniel's arm as if that could erase the ache inside me, and pretended the empty seat in the front row was just an unfortunate coincidence. But every time I looked at that chair, draped in white fabric and facing the altar, I felt like I was staring into the remains of a father-daughter relationship that had died long before that day. So when he appeared on my porch on Thanksgiving Day, unannounced, older than I remembered, thinner, with a heaviness in his eyes that I didn't know how to read, everything inside me tightened. My body froze in place, torn between slamming the door in his face or collapsing into his arms like the child I once was. The decision wasn't mine to make, though. He stepped forward slightly, the envelope trembling in his hand, and whispered, "I need to give you something." His voice cracked on the last word. It was the first time I had ever heard my father sound uncertain. Inside the house, I felt Daniel's presence behind me before I heard him. He had stopped in the hallway, probably seeing the look on my face and not knowing what or who could have caused it. When he realized it was my father on the doorstep, I could feel the tension crash through him, sharp and electric. Daniel had never said a bad word about him, never complained, never blamed. But I knew the pain of that empty wedding seat lived inside him too. He had always wondered why a man would willingly break his daughter's heart like that. My father looked past me and noticed Daniel standing there, and for a moment, the two of them just stared at each other, like two worlds that had never been meant to collide. I could feel the silence expanding, suffocating, pressing between all of us. I swallowed hard, stepped back, and said the only thing my brain could form. "Come in." He hesitated just for a second, but then crossed the threshold, bringing with him a cold gust of air, and an even colder wave of memories I had tried to bury for years. Daniel gave him a stiff nod, and my father responded with a quiet, "Thank you," that sounded like it had been dragged out of him. My mother, who had been helping me set the table, appeared in the doorway of the dining room. When she saw him, she froze with a stack of plates in her hands. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes flicked to me, then to the envelope he was holding, and I saw something flicker across her face. Fear? Anxiety? Recognition? I wasn't sure, but I knew she wasn't surprised to see him. That alone made my stomach twist. My younger brother Mark, who had always been the peacekeeper of the family, muttered, "Dad?" in disbelief as he came around the corner. And my sister Amber, who had barely spoken to our father in years, let out a soft scoff before walking to the other side of the room, creating as much distance as she could. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew where to stand, what to say, how to breathe. It was like someone had pulled the emergency brake on Thanksgiving, stopping everything mid-motion. "We're about to start dinner," I said, my voice unfamiliar even to myself. "You can stay, I guess." My father nodded, holding the envelope tighter. "I'd like that, and I have something important to share with all of you. Something I should have shared a long time ago." Something inside me tightened again. I didn't know if I should brace myself, sit down, run, or scream. Daniel touched my back gently, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone, that I didn't have to navigate this avalanche of emotions without support. I breathed a little easier. As everyone returned to the dining room, the atmosphere felt thick, like the air had weight. My father took a seat at the far end of the table, my husband's seat, actually. Daniel quietly took the chair beside me instead, and though he didn't say anything, I could feel every emotion swirling inside him. We served the food in silence. The clinking of silverware against plates echoed louder than any conversation. My mother's hands shook a little as she passed the mashed potatoes. Amber refused to look in his direction. Mark kept darting his eyes between all of us like he was watching a bomb and waiting for it to explode. My father barely touched his food. He kept the envelope on the table right in front of him, staring at it like it contained every regret he'd ever carried. His shoulders were rigid, his jaw tight, and his eyes occasionally watered, though he blinked away the tears before they could fall. After a tense 15 minutes of forced chewing and failed attempts at small talk, he finally cleared his throat. "There's a reason I'm here," he said, his voice low but steady. "A reason I didn't come to your wedding, and a reason I acted the way I did. For most of your lives." My mother set her fork down slowly and looked at him with eyes that begged him not to continue. I realized then it wasn't surprise on her face earlier, it was dread. My father gently picked up the envelope, holding it with both hands like it might break. "This letter. I wasn't supposed to keep it. It was meant for you on your wedding day." He looked at me. "Your mother wrote it." My breath caught. My mother closed her eyes, tears pooling instantly. I looked at her, confusion and betrayal swirling. What is he talking about? She shook her head slightly. "I never wanted this to come out like this." My father opened the envelope slowly, almost ceremonially, and unfolded the letter inside. The paper was yellowed around the edges, the ink slightly blurred, as if time itself had tried to erase it. "I need all of you to listen," he said, "because this changes everything." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. He began to read. The moment the first line left his mouth, my world began to tilt. And that is when everything started to unravel. The moment my father began reading the letter, my body reacted before my mind did. My heart started pounding in my chest so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. My hands turned cold, and a strange, hollow pressure settled behind my eyes, the kind that comes before tears, only I couldn't cry, not yet. I was too stunned, too frozen, too afraid of what was about to be revealed. My father's voice trembled as he read the opening sentence, a sentence written in my mother's graceful handwriting almost 20 years earlier. "My sweet girl, if you're reading this, it means you're marrying someone who truly loves you." I heard my mother suck in a breath. She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head slowly as if she could somehow stop the words from continuing. But the words flowed anyway, soft, delicate, powerful. "You deserve a love that is gentle, kind, and honest. And there is something you need to know before you begin your own family." My stomach twisted painfully. My father paused, his eyes lingering on the next line. It took him several seconds before he could continue, his voice cracking as he forced the words out. "I hope you can forgive your father. His mistakes were not your burden to carry, but you've carried the consequences of them your entire life." My breath caught, sharp and involuntary. Across the table, Amber whispered, "What the hell?" But no one responded. The letter continued. "Years ago, long before you were old enough to understand, our family went through something very painful. Something that nearly destroyed our marriage. Your father had an affair. Everything inside me froze. It was like time stopped. Like the walls of the dining room stretched farther away. Like the world became both too quiet and too loud at the same time." My father didn't look up. He kept reading, eyes fixed on the letter, as tears slid down his cheeks. "I chose to stay. I chose to forgive. But forgiveness comes with shadows. Your father promised he would never let this mistake touch you or your siblings. He promised to protect you from the truth, but the guilt changed him. It hardened him. It made him strict with you, especially with you." The words burned. I felt my throat tighten as I struggled to swallow. My mother had closed her eyes, tears silently rolling down her face. The letter continued, and my father's voice wavered. He tried to control everything because deep down he felt he had already lost everything that mattered. He needed to believe he could still be a good father, even if he didn't feel like one. I didn't know whether to scream or collapse. Amber whispered something under her breath, something like, "I knew it." But I wasn't listening to her. I could barely hear anything. Then came the line that shifted something in me forever. "I wrote this letter because I wanted you to know the truth on your wedding day. I wanted you to know why your father struggled to show you love in the way you deserved. But he couldn't bring himself to give you this letter. He was afraid you look at him differently. Afraid you see the man he was, not the man he was trying to be." My father finally stopped reading. The silence that followed was suffocating. No one moved. No one breathed. No one dared to speak. I stared at him, stunned, my body trembling as the weight of everything pressed into me. All the years of criticism, the impossible expectations, the cold silences, the judgments. The way he had always made me feel like I was one decision away from disappointing him. They all suddenly made sense, not justified, not forgiven, but understood in a way that felt like someone had turned on a light in a room I didn't know I'd been sitting in my entire life. I could barely form words, but somehow they came out in a raw whisper. "So you punished me because you cheated on Mom?" He flinched like I physically hit him. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "I punished myself. You were just caught in the fallout." Amber scoffed from across the table. "That's convenient." My father wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I know it sounds weak. I know it sounds selfish. And I'm not asking for sympathy. I just want you all to understand what I've spent years trying to hide." Mark leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Dad, is there more?" My father hesitated. My mother looked down at her lap. And then he said the words that changed the air in the room. "There's more." The tension snapped like a wire stretched too far. "What else?" Amber demanded. My father looked at me first. Not at Mark, not at Amber, me, because somehow I think he knew this next part would land hardest on me. "The woman I had the affair with. She got pregnant." My vision blurred. "What?" I breathed. The room erupted. Amber stood up. "Are you kidding me? You have another child? Another family?" Mark buried his face in his hands. My mother started sobbing silently, her shoulders shaking. Daniel placed a steady hand on my knee, grounding me before I drifted too far into the shock. My father swallowed hard. I never met the baby. The relationship ended before she gave birth. She moved out of state. We agreed to cut ties permanently. I tried to fix what I broke here, but I was always afraid that one day the truth would come out. And you would all hate me. I felt like I was floating outside my body, like the entire world had tilted. Like the man I had spent my life trying to please was suddenly a stranger. I looked at my mother, tears streaking down her face. "Why didn't you tell us?" She whispered, "Because I didn't want you to think marriage was something that could shatter so easily. I wanted you to believe in family. I wanted you to have something stable, even if it wasn't perfect." It hurt. God, it hurt so much. My voice cracked as I said, "You let me think he was cold because of me." My mother covered her face with her hands. "I thought it was better than you knowing the truth." My father shook his head vigorously. "No, it wasn't better. It was wrong. I should have told you years ago. I should have given you this letter before your wedding. But I was terrified. And then, when you chose Daniel, I felt all my old fears come back. I felt like I was losing you. And instead of showing up and being the father you needed, I stayed home. I hid, because I didn't think I deserved to stand next to you on that day." His voice cracked so violently that for a moment he couldn't continue. "I hated myself," he whispered. "Every day. And I took that out on you without meaning to. The explosion of revelations left all of us speechless. Finally, I found my voice. Do you want me to forgive you? I asked slowly. Just because you feel bad? He shook his head. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell the truth before it was too late. Daniel spoke up for the first time. His tone was gentle but firm. Is that why you refused to come to our wedding? My father nodded, tears streaming freely now. Partly, but also because I didn't think Daniel deserved a father-in-law like me. I thought you deserved someone better than the man I was. I exhaled shakily, my chest tight. So instead of showing up, you abandoned me? He closed his eyes. Yes, and I hate myself for it. The room fell silent again, the weight of everything pressing down on all of us. I had spent years internalizing his coldness, thinking it was something wrong with me, something I wasn't, something I failed to be. And now, all at once, I was learning that his distance had never really been about me at all. It was about his guilt, his fear, his inability to face himself. Something inside me broke, not in the painful way, but in the way that creates space for clarity. I felt tears rising, hot and unstoppable. My father looked at me with a desperation I had never seen in his eyes. I know you may never want a relationship with me again, he whispered. But I didn't want to leave this world without you knowing the truth. His vulnerability cracked something open in the room. But it didn't erase the pain. It didn't heal the past. It didn't fix what had been broken. Not yet. Daniel took my hand and squeezed it gently. Whatever you need, he whispered. I looked around the table at my mother's trembling hands, at my siblings' shock, at my father's regret carved into every wrinkle of his face, and I realized something profound. This moment, as painful as it was the closest my family had ever been to the truth. And truth, no matter how devastating, was the only thing that could set any of us free. I took a deep breath. Dad, I said slowly, steadying my voice. We're not done talking. Not by a long shot, but thank you for telling the truth. His whole expression softened, like a man who had been holding his breath for 20 years and finally exhaled. Before anyone could say anything else, Amber abruptly stood up, tears in her eyes. I need air, she said, and stormed out the front door. Mark followed her. My mother stayed in her seat, silently crying. And I sat there, staring at my father, knowing this was only the beginning of a conversation that was about to change everything we thought we knew about our family. I didn't go after Amber and Mark right away. I couldn't. My body felt pinned to the chair, as though standing up would somehow shatter whatever fragile structure was holding all of us together. My father remained seated at the end of the table, shoulders slumped, hands trembling slightly as they rested on the open letter. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, like a man deflated by years of secrets, guilt, and consequences finally catching up to him. Daniel rubbed slow circles on my back, grounding me. My mother wiped her face with a napkin, her eyes swollen and red, unable to look at either of us. The room felt heavy with grief, but there was something else buried in the air too, something softer, maybe possibility. Maybe the faintest hint of healing, still too distant to touch. After what felt like forever, I finally stood up. I'm going outside, I whispered to Daniel. He nodded. I'll be here if you need me. My mother reached out as I passed her chair. Please, be kind to them, she murmured. They need time. I didn't answer. I didn't know if kindness was within my reach yet. When I stepped outside, the cold November air slapped my face, waking me up from the emotional fog. Amber was pacing on the porch, arms crossed tightly, fury radiating from her. Mark sat on the porch steps, elbows on his knees, staring at the ground. The second Amber saw me, she exploded. Are we just supposed to what? Forgive him? Pretend the last 20 years makes sense now just because he cried and read a letter? Her voice cracked as anger and heartbreak collided in her eyes. I'm not forgiving him, I said quietly. I'm trying to understand. Understand? She laughed bitterly. He ruined everything. He controlled us. He controlled Mom. He missed your wedding, and now he thinks reading some confession earns him redemption? Mark finally spoke, voice low but steady. Amber, it's not about redemption. No, she snapped. Then what is it about? Mark looked up at both of us. It's about truth. That silenced her. He took a slow breath. He's our father. A flawed one, a broken one, but still our father. And maybe this is the first real thing he's told us in years. I could see Amber struggling. Her anger was really pain-layered, compacted, ignored for so long it had hardened into something sharp. I stepped closer. We don't have to forgive him tonight. Or ever. That's not what this is about. She swallowed hard, her lip trembling. Then what is it about for you? It's about choosing whether I want to hold on to the pain he created, or start healing from it. Her eyes filled with tears. He hurt you the most. I shook my head, maybe, but carrying that hurt won't protect me. It won't change the past. And it won't build the kind of family I want with Daniel. Amber collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her tightly, letting her cry into my shoulder. Mark stood and wrapped his arms around both of us, creating a small, trembling circle of siblings finally facing the truth together. After a few minutes, Amber pulled back and wiped her face. Okay, she whispered. Let's go back inside. When we returned to the dining room, my father stood up, startled, as though he wasn't sure any of us were coming back. Amber didn't yell again. Mark didn't speak, and I didn't hesitate. I walked to the table and sat down. We need to talk, I said. Daniel slid a chair out for Amber and Mark, who both took their seats wordlessly. My father swallowed, his hands clasped in front of him. I'll answer anything. Anything you need to know. So we asked everything. We asked how long the affair lasted, whether he knew anything about the child, how my mother handled it, why he never sought therapy, why he let guilt turn him into someone we were afraid of rather than someone we could turn to, why the letter was kept hidden, why he didn't fight harder to be better for us, why my wedding had been the breaking point for him. Some answers hurt more than I expected. Some answers softened things I didn't realize had hardened inside me. Some answers made me angry all over again. Some made my mother cry, but he answered every single one. For the first time in my life, my father didn't hide behind anger or silence or rules. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't deflect. He didn't try to defend himself with pride. He just talked. Honestly, vulnerably, and something unexpected happened. The more he spoke, the more I understood that the man I grew up with had been battling himself, not us. The anger he had thrown at me wasn't born from hate, it was born from fear, fear of repeating his mistakes, fear of not deserving love, fear of being seen fully and found empty. Understanding isn't forgiveness, but it is a beginning. Hours passed. The Thanksgiving food went cold. The candles burned down. The house grew quiet except for our voices and the occasional heartbreaking sniffle. Eventually, my father looked exhausted, like telling the truth had drained years out of him. I know I've lost so much, he whispered. But if there's any chance that someday I could be part of your lives again, I would give anything for that. I didn't have an answer for him yet. But I did know this. This is the first time, I said softly, that I've ever felt like you were talking to me. Not at me. Not through me. To me. His eyes filled with tears again. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. My chest tightened. Not with anger this time, but with something more complicated, something almost tender. Dad, I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. But I'm ready to try. He closed his eyes, relief washing over him like a tide. That's more than I deserve, he said. Maybe, I replied. But it's what I need. The night ended slowly. Amber hugged him, not tightly, but not coldly either. Mark shook his hand, then pulled him in for a brief, awkward hug. My mother held him the longest, their history passing silently between them. When he left, he paused at the doorway and looked at me. "I'll be better," he said. "I promise." I believed that he meant it. Whether he could keep that promise was something only time would reveal. When the door closed behind him, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Daniel wrapped his arms around me from behind. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. I leaned into him. "Like everything hurts. And like maybe that's okay." He kissed the top of my head. "I'm proud of you." I turned toward him, eyes stinging. "For what?" "For choosing healing, even when pain seems easier." I pressed my forehead against his. "Thank you for being here." "Always," he murmured. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet again, I found myself standing alone in the dining room, staring at the now folder letter on the table. I picked it up, tracing the familiar curves of my mother's handwriting. So much hurt had been passed down through our family, through silence, through pride, through unresolved mistakes. But the truth had cracked something open inside me, something that no longer wanted to carry the weight of old emotional debts. I realized that breaking a family pattern doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, tiny, painful, courageous moments where you choose honesty over resentment, clarity over blame, vulnerability over self-protection. I folded the letter and tucked it away, not to forget, but to remember what honesty can cost and what it can save. And I made myself a promise. My marriage would not repeat the patterns of my parents' past. I would speak openly. I would forgive slowly but intentionally. I would love without control. I would choose truth over silence even if it terrified me. As I turned off the last light in the house, I whispered quietly to myself, "This is the beginning of something better." And maybe it really was. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. And if this story meant something to you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. It helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate it. And if you like to support the channel, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is in the description.